When you think of the heroes of the American Revolution, you probably don't picture black soldiers. But their stories are woven into the very fabric of America's independence, and they have been largely ignored. Black soldiers served on both sides of the conflict. The British actively recruited enslaved people with the promise of freedom in exchange for service. In a striking contrast, George Washington initially forbade black men from joining the Continental Army. Though he later reversed his decision, the American promise of freedom was often unreliable. Despite this, Black Americans made an immense contribution. As many as 10 to 15% of the soldiers in the Revolution were Black. Many were enslaved men who were sent to fight, only to return to bondage after the war, their wages going directly to their masters. Yet, they fought with remarkable courage. Figures like Double Agent James Armistead and war hero Salem Poor proved to be indispensable. For all their sacrifice, few were ever formally recognized, and their bravery has been largely erased from the history books, a tragic footnote to a war for freedom they were so often denied. You may know the name Wounded Knee, but do you know the full story? What some call a battle was, in fact, a tragedy of a defenseless people. By the end of the 19th century, the Lakota had been stripped of their land and their primary food source, the buffalo, leaving them destitute on reservations. A religious movement called the Ghost Dance offered them hope that their way of life would be restored. Fearing this spiritual revival, the U.S. government sent in the largest military force since the Civil War. On December 29, 1890, soldiers surrounded a band of Lakota. A gun was discharged, and the soldiers opened fire on the encampment. When the shooting stopped, up to 300 Lakota had been killed, while only 25 U.S. soldiers were casualties. This lopsided death toll had a chilling explanation. 2/3 of the Lakota victims were women and children. The rest were primarily older men. After winning World War II, the U.S. government made a shocking choice. It secretly hired its former enemies. It was called Operation Paperclip. To gain a crucial advantage in the Cold War, the U.S. brought over 1,600 German scientists and their families. But there was a dark catch. Many of these individuals had committed war crimes or were active members of the Nazi Party. To bypass President Truman's directive that no active Nazis be employed by the government, the military took a chilling step. They systematically erased evidence of war crimes and scrubbed the scientists' records clean, deliberately hiding their pasts to bring them to America. The nation put its own scientific and military gain above justice. A dark reminder of how the Cold War pushed countries to make morally questionable decisions. You've heard of the internment of Japanese Americans, but the full story is even more chilling. Families were given just days to abandon their homes and businesses, leading to an estimated $400 million in lost property. Those who tried to sell their belongings were taken advantage of by opportunistic buyers who offered them rock-bottom prices. The demographics of the camps are a heartbreaking indictment of the policy. Half of the faces behind the barbed wire were children, including babies and orphans. Anyone with even a minuscule amount of Japanese heritage, as little as 1/16, was forced to go, even if they were American citizens born and raised in the U.S. Life inside the camps was brutal, with substandard meals and medical care. In total, 1,862 people died in the camps, many from preventable diseases. And even after the war, the injustice continued. Former internees were twice as likely to die prematurely from heart disease. The U.S. government finally apologized in 1988, paying a measly $20,000 to each living survivor, a fraction of what was lost. While Nazi war crimes are well known, an equally horrifying chapter of human experimentation was written by a secret Japanese unit during World War II. This was Unit 731, a secret biological warfare and research facility in China. The unit used captured civilians as human guinea pigs, referring to them as maruta or logs. The victims were subjected to unimaginable acts of torture, not to find a cure, but out of pure morbid curiosity. The horrific experiments included vivisections on fully conscious prisoners, some of which were pregnant women. In other cases, they would freeze a person's limbs solid and then scald them with boiling water, or force people with STDs to have sex with uninfected individuals to study disease transmission. The most disturbing fact, after the war, the lead scientist and his team were granted immunity from prosecution by the United States in exchange for their research data. Their unspeakable crimes against humanity were traded for scientific knowledge, and they were allowed to walk free. While America was fighting to defeat Nazi Germany, it was also making a shocking decision to turn its back on Jewish refugees. As the Holocaust raged across Europe, thousands of Jewish families sought refuge in the U.S. But despite their desperate pleas, the U.S. government turned away ships filled with refugees, sending them back to almost certain death. Even more shocking, the U.S. never even filled its legal immigration quota for German immigrants, which would have allowed thousands more to enter the country. In a profound act of moral failure, the nation that prided itself on being a beacon of hope left thousands to their fates. Meanwhile, countries with far fewer resources, like China and the Philippines, opened their doors and became safe havens for those same refugees. The history of medicine contains a dark and shameful secret. A decent chunk of what we know about treating hypothermia was derived from brutal Nazi experiments conducted at the Dachau concentration camp. Between 1942 and 1943, Nazi doctors tortured prisoners by plunging them into tanks of ice water or leaving them exposed to sub-zero temperatures, all to find the most effective methods for rewarming German pilots. The victims were not volunteers, they were human test subjects, a terrifying, dehumanized resource for an evil regime. In the aftermath of the war, a fierce ethical debate erupted over the findings. Some argued that using this poisoned data would validate the horrific crimes and disrespect the victims. Others argued that the information, however it was obtained, could be used to save lives. The debate over the use of this data continues to this day, a chilling reminder that even life-saving knowledge can be stained by an act of pure evil.